What's up, y'all? It is a special Monday edition of the Podcast Champs with Damien and Dio. And Super Bowl was yesterday. I didn't really care. I was busy watching Halftime Heat because I found that to be more interesting. And I think you, Dio, had a better experience during the Super Bowl, and it wasn't because of the game. So would you like to share that with the audience?
Oh yeah, fuck the game. I don't like more than fuck the NFL too. I don't like either of the teams that are in
Fuck
it.
concussions, by the way.
Oh yeah, no concussions like that. But yeah, so I was down here in Atlanta. I'm a resident of the Metro Atlanta area, and I drive rideshare, which means Uber and Lyft. And it was. Are we backing up out there? It was a very busy weekend for rideshare. Like I could have stayed out on the road and easily made $500-600, but I really don't like driving that much. So plus the traffic was so bad that it essentially made getting around just the amount of time that you would have to spend on the road in order to get it just wasn't worth it. Like I went out for like 3 hours and made like $200.
Nice.
So like you did that, and like it wasn't even so much because there's a lot of stuff that went on in the was going on this weekend. So it wasn't just the Super Bowl. Cardi B had a concert down here. The Foo Fighters had a concert down here. A bunch of other things were going on. So a lot of people came in town there. Then you had the people that came in just for the parties. So like I picked up one group of people from like the shittiest apartment complex I've ever seen in my life. But they came out furs, Gucci belts, Gucci shoes, a stack of ones. I have large hands. So a stack of ones this big. That was just the one stack that I saw. Inside of his Gucci man bag, there were even more stacks of cash. He was headed to a strip club. So you had that. Then, of course, you had the strippers that were going to the strip club as well. I picked up at least 3 or 4 Sunday morning. So it was Sunday morning was just picking up strippers and Walk of Shames, or was it say Stroll of Pride or whatever it is?
The Stroll of Pride.
Yeah. So or the Stride of Pride, that's what it's called. But so I picked up, she had been dancing probably from about, I think she said, because she was having so when I picked her up, she was already in a car with what I assume were also strippers, exotic dancers, no judgment, secure the bag however you can.
Exactly.
And they were like having like a discussion about, okay, so you're going to go here, I'm going to go here, we're going to go there. We got to get to such and such before so that we can get a locker. When I heard locker, that's when I knew exactly what it was, because you go to a strip club, keep your stuff in a locker, and you got to make sure you bring a good lock because motherfuckers is crafty.
Okay.
A paperclip will open that shit real quick. But so, and then in the car, they had a full-blown conference. There was at least 6 or 7 different distinct voices that I heard on this phone call. And it was just more of the strategic planning of how they were going to attack the weekend. But so I picked her up at like 8 in the morning, and that was from a club. So she had been there and probably like just fell asleep at the club because they usually close around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
She smelled horrible.
Oh,
it was bad. But that's just because it was. And the thing is, at the strip clubs, it was and when I say horrible, it's not just a body odor thing. So it was body odor because when you dance, sweat happens.
Of course.
Also, she smelled like cigarettes and like a mix mash of like a mix mash of her own like perfumes and then a bunch of different colognes as well. So like clubs. So and then there of course there's weed and all that. So it was all these smells at one time. I had to Febreze the fuck out of my car. It was something. But she fell asleep right after the conference call. She passed out. Like she just leaned over like this and like hovered. Her hair did not touch the seat, which I know that's a professional move, because when you have, whether it's a wig or, you're weaving, you don't want to mess that up, because you got, want to make sure it looks good when you go back out later that night. And yeah, she I was like, hey, more props to you. Left me a good tip too. Strippers always leave the best tips when it comes to rideshare.
Wait a minute. So, I mean, I get why, because one, cash on hand for one, and two, they don't really have to exchange the cash. They just have to use the app, which is great. So I guess the next question here is, has a stripper ever given you cash out her bag as a tip?
Absolutely. Yeah. We essentially work in the same business. We give people a service. And when you are in the service industry, I know people like this because sex work, I just look at this at sex work as service industry.
Right.
It is what it is. I don't like to put the whole moniker of sex on it. We both work in the same industry. So like when I go to a restaurant, I always tip. Even if it's Waffle House and I only spend $12, I'm gonna give them a $5 tip. Like I know they worked for what they did, so I'm going to make sure, and I know they're not making me much above minimum wage. So with strippers, it's the same thing. They always, like, if I get them where they need to go to safely, especially if they have multiple stops on the way, they'll usually just throw me like 20 or something like that.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's what I did yesterday. And yeah.
And this morning?
This morning I went out again today. So this morning was fucking wild. So let me share my screen. So I can give you a peek of what. Okay.
So for those who just don't know what we're doing right now, this is his Uber. Wow.
Right. So this is what we see on the back end, basically.
Okay.
We get to see all of, like, when you see this type of stuff, that's how much money we will make on top of the standard rate. So you would make $14 if this was going to the airport, which most of the things this morning were going to the airport, was from there probably about $22. So you make like, so no, 22 to 25. So you'd make close to $40 off just that one ride, and that's before a tip. So the map is only ever lit up like that when there's a really big event. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. So on a good, let's say on an average, not so great day, what, I guess for you, is the average take home from working rideshare?
It depends. I never go out for a full day. I set a goal of how much I want to make, and then I go out and do that, and I come back home. Usually my goal is like, if I'm just going out in the morning, I try to make $40 to $60 within, and I try to do $20 an hour. That's my goal for that. And I drive a Prius, so like I don't really have to worry too much about gas, like other rideshare people do.
Right.
So, yeah, but on, like I said, like on Saturday, I went out and made was like 180 or something like that, or 200. After tip, it was like $200. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So you can go out and make a good amount of money doing Uber. It's just that you have to deal with people, and people suck.
I feel like that's society in general. It's you have the best of intentions. You want to make as much money as possible to fulfill whatever dreams and aspirations you have, and people just tend to get in the way. And someone who works in psychology and in human service, as you well know, just the people are part of the problem, even though they don't realize they're part of the problem.
Absolutely.
So I get it. And that's actually part of the reason I couldn't do, like you, I couldn't do Lyft or Uber for longer than maybe 3 hours tops.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I can't even do regular work for more than 3 or 4 hours at a time because I don't have the mental attention span to be able to do that. But I say that because you and I both struggle, sometimes with our own mental focuses and things of that nature, where, dude, we don't want to deal with some other people's drama and toxicity for more than maybe like an hour at a time.
Yeah.
Because it's draining.
And the thing about driving rideshare is, so most people, I would say 90% of the people that get in don't want to talk. And I'm fine with that. I am A-okay with that. Cool. Like, I have my favorite genre of music listed as silence on my profile. So, like, and I have that, and then I speak when I'm spoken to. Like, looking at my badges and stuff like that, I've got the great conversationalist, great. I'm one of the VIP, all that good, fantastic stuff, right? I don't want to talk half the time. I get on, I get in. I was like, I confirm who they are. I confirm where they're going. They don't talk unless they start talking to me. Like, I just have my headphones in, listening to directions and podcasts.
So wait, you drive with the headphone in?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I can still hear whatever they're doing. So,
well, I mean more from a legality standpoint.
Oh, so as long as you are listening to directions, that's where the legal stuff comes in. So, like down here, they kept on changing the rules and stuff. Like, they just changed the thing to whereas you can't hold your phone, which completely understandable. You shouldn't be holding a phone. And if you have it in a holster, like in a stand or something like that, you can't touch it or do things on it for more than 10 seconds at a time.
So how do they regulate that?
There's no real way.
They don't, exactly. That's why I was confused. I'm like, how is that regulated? Oh, they don't.
Right. So like if I were to say like, I have a camera in my car. Yeah. If a cop was to say, hey, you did such and such, I would go back, I would get the footage out of my camera and I'll be like, look, I didn't. So
got you.
Throw this away. But yeah, from the legal standpoint, you have to be able, like, you can have earbuds in as long as you are listening to directions.
Okay, so that makes sense then. All right, yeah. You're not doing anything safety hazardous or putting yourself or your riders at jeopardy.
Right. And like I have larger ear canals anyway, so I never have like the snug fit. So I'm always able to hear.
That's good.
Like I can have those in and still have a full conversation. So.
Okay. Well, let me transition really quick. Did you watch Halftime Heat at all?
Nah, I didn't.
Actually pretty good, dude.
I'll go back and watch it, but
yeah,
I just didn't bother.
The reason why I say that is because, and this is actually the main topic of conversation here on Podcast Champs, is I felt like I was watching all the indies pushed together. You know, you take the PWGs, the Evolves, Dragon Gate, CZW. You take all these super indies, MLW, if you want to throw that in there, and that's NXT. That's how I viewed NXT yesterday because, well, first off, I watched not the best in the world, whatever that tournament was recently where I had NXT UK versus NXT versus 205.
Yeah,
I just saw that yesterday, and spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it, Velveteen Dream wound up being the victor.
Shout out to the guy.
Okay, I will admit I was not sold on him at first. You know this. I was probably one of the last 3 people to get on the Velveteen Dream bandwagon. But the reason why I did that it took me so long was because his in-ring work did not catch up to his overall presentation.
Right.
Now that his in-ring work is getting better by the day, it seems, I'm okay with rooting on Mr. Patrick Clark. Also because I've noticed if you give him a top tier wrestling talent to work with, notice I didn't say sports entertainer, I said wrestling talent to work with, his matches are that much more enjoyable. Right. When you Aleister Black's, Johnny Gargano's, yesterday pretty much having him in that 6-man tag with anyone that was in Evolve, because you had like Ricochet, Tommy End, I know his name's Aleister now, Adam Cole, and DIY, and people forget that Patrick was once in the indie circuit, teaming with Leo Rush. Right. So he's not a born and bred performance center attendee.
Right.
He was on the indies at one point, but just watching his evolution from real American Patrick Clark when he was trying to be a right-wing African-American character.
Yeah, which was the dumbest thing.
Yeah, he was trying to be a Black Trump supporter, essentially. That was his first gimmick. And then he became this amalgamation of Jimi Hendrix and Prince. And now I want to say Hulk Hogan, but better. The Hulk Hogan mannerisms he's using a lot more, Macho Man. I feel as if he's taken all the creator wrestler moves from all the old video games and incorporating them into his style. And I like that.
That's everybody, though. There is any wrestler that started wrestling after the SmackDown video games came out.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are just creator wrestlers, because that's where most of that stuff we started. All that stuff of like, we didn't know what the fuck New Japan was.
Nope.
JPW, any of that stuff over there, or even what the indies were, right? We got all of that stuff from the Creator Wrestler Gallery, from all that stuff. So all these folks, the WWE has been training these people since they were preteens.
Yes. Like, you just don't know it yet.
You just don't know it yet. And here's the thing that I will say about Velveteen Dream, right? And I was on board once he dropped the whole Trump supporter thing, because I can't. I'm a son of two immigrants. Just can't rock with that type of a gimmick at all. But even when he was on Tough Enough,
mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, there's something here. Like, this kid there's something special here. He picked up on stuff quick.
Yes.
Like, incredibly quick. His promo skills, were better than pros were. His promo skills on Tough Enough were better than most of the pros that were on the main roster at the time. And even were better than most of the people on the roster right now, period. And I'm talking like top, even like some of the top people. So, like, I knew back then, but once he did, he started doing the whole, when it was kind of like, we don't know if it's Jimi Hendrix. Like, he was Jimi Hendrix one week, the next week he was Prince. Like, he was feeling it out, which
he was figuring it all out, right?
Right. Which I know you like to say that, like, NXT is no longer developmental, what it is, because that's where all of these we watch on a weekly basis as these people figure this stuff out. It's just in a more polished form than you would on, like, say, the indies.
And I think that's kind of where I draw that line, where NXT has become, well, it always has been, but I realize now, because it's so top heavy, you have all these guys and gals who were pretty much running their promotions whenever they were brought in by, like I said, CZW, Evolve, WWN, Dragon Gate, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing them on takeovers, where the main event of an Evolve show years ago would have been Riddle versus Hero, and it's like the second match on a takeover card, or Ricochet and Gargano would be PWG's Wet Dream, and yet it's on takeover as like the fourth match. And that's what I mean about it. I don't look at it as developmental from, they took people from modeling as much. Everything now, it seems as if the developmental is in the nuances of professional wrestling. Yeah. Like you said, the promo skills to be television ready. I feel like that is the developmental aspect of NXT.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Like, it's the whole thing of, like, because, like, people still tend to think that developmental is like Ohio Valley Wrestling, or like where you would go, like, remember back in like the early 2000s, they sent Matt Hardy back to, I think it was OVW or whatever, one of the developmental areas, because he couldn't throw punches properly. So those days are gone.
Right.
Those days are gone, because one, throwing punches, everybody has a different way of doing that now. I think mixed martial arts has kind of opened up how people look at how like striking works in professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the days of, oh yeah, you get sent down to developmental to actually develop your skills is like, no, developmental nowadays is more to develop your character as well as, you know, maybe if you do need to tune up. And like with the PC, and that's another thing too. The performance center that's something that didn't exist before in any form, right? Sure, you might have gone to a school that had a decent gym, but you didn't have somewhere where you had a one-stop shop for everything. You have nutritionists, you have, you know, a awesome gym, you have personal trainers, you have, you know, you can go in and record promos at basically at any time of the day, you know, and play them back and get creative criticism. Like people didn't have that before. So what you would have to go to do like 5 or 6 different places before, they get to do all of that in one place now.
Right.
So like developmental, just the phrase, it's antiquated because people think of it as the old way when the old way hasn't been the old way in a long time.
Right.
So yeah.
Because the reason why I bring this up is because you and I have talked what amounts to almost a year about NXT in general and cutting the fat from the last episode. We talked about who got to go home.
Right.
We've come to the realization that it's going to get to the point where WWE is going to cut a lot of their main roster people only because NXT is so bloated. It's like we have to make changes. I hate to say it. Our boy No Way Jose probably is going to get cut in about 3 more months.
Like he's a great band ambassador. Yes. But like there is no, those types of gimmicks don't work on the main roster.
No.
You know, like, and plus I think they're starting to see the optics on stuff just don't really, it doesn't mesh, you know, like having, you know, a brown or black or brown person just dancing around all the time. Not really that great, you know, like at least with like R-Truth, he's doing it with a white woman, which that's its own thing. But like, or with like the New Day, you don't see them dancing around like they did before. And I think they're like, all right, we can't. We got to start listening now.
I'll admit they're not as sticky or shucky as they used to be. I'm glad.
I never found them to be shucky.
Really? I used to find them shucky at first.
Never found them because so for me, shucky was Xavier Woods and R-Truth doing a jig in the middle of the ring with Confederate hats on. That was shucky to me. But now that we know who Big E, Kofi, and Xavier are, that was them. Like all of what they did as the New Day, this is them turned up to 1,000. That's why I never, because like you can tell when somebody's not happy doing what they're doing, right? Like Xavier, when he was doing this stuff with R-Truth, he was happy to be there, right? So that was that, and you could see the happy to be here on his face with that stuff.
Like, hey, guys.
Right. And like R-Truth is just happy to be making money. So like he's
because it's funding the rest of his projects.
Right.
You know, his rap album, his music production.
Trash projects. That man is garbage. Like when I see folks like, you know, the other wrestlers tweeting his stuff out, I'm like, I know y'all gotta do this, but like, damn. Just trash. Just hot garbage. But yeah, like I said, I never really found them to be shucky. I found them so when they first came out and they were being forced to do this pre-treat thing. Yes, was because you could tell, like you could see on Big E's face, he did not believe what he was saying at all. So like when I was paying attention to stuff, I was like, okay, yeah, they're not happy doing what they're doing. And once you could see when it clicked and they're like, okay, they're actually being themselves now. They're giving them a creative reign to do this stuff because there ain't no way Vince McMahon would sign off on half the shit that they do if they told him what they meant. So yeah.
Right. Like, and I think that This is what happens when you don't have diversity in your creative team.
Yeah.
And this is all walks of life, not even just WWE or professional wrestling. If you don't have diversity at your place of work, you don't know the things that you don't know. As corny as that sounds, I have worked with people who did not know that not all Puerto Ricans like rice and beans. I shit you not. You know, that was a literal, they came to me and said, hey, you know, this was my cultural bias. I'm really sorry. I had never been exposed to anyone, you know, who's from different Latin cultures. I just thought all Puerto Ricans and all Dominicans ate the same thing. My bad.
Right.
Okay, cool. I can rock with that, you know, but in every walk of life, no matter how much diversity training you go through, if you don't have it with you all the time, the access to know different cultures, we're going to keep running into this. It's, you know, racism is trash. Yes, we know. But what's just as bad for me is people who are unwilling to educate themselves on the little idiosyncratics that make us individuals, that make us who we are. And I fight with that daily, dude.
Like being a person of color in any country where you are the minority is always tough because you constantly have to deal with this stuff, right? Like back when I had hair and stuff, like I had waves.
Yes.
And like white people would just be like, oh my God. I'm like, don't know. One, invading my personal space. Because if I came up and touched your face, you would have called the cops on me, right? Don't touch my fucking hair. Like and like you had like having to deal with stuff like that. Having to deal with like, you know, the whole fried chicken and watermelon thing too, right? With black people. And they were like, oh, like, and they were like, oh, I didn't mean it. I'm like, dude, you obviously did mean it because you wouldn't have said it otherwise. Like it's just own up to your bullshit. But like, so, and then me being of island and African descent, of course, you know, ultimately I'm of African descent, but my father's from Nigeria. My mom is from Bermuda. When I would say I'm from I'm half Nigerian or my last name is Nigerian.
Yes.
Oh, so like, does your family like live in huts? It's like, no, Nigeria is one of the richest countries in the fucking world. Like, what are you, where are you guys getting a lot of this stuff? Sure, there are poor areas, just like in America, there are areas that are below third world.
Yes.
So like, you know, y'all gotta, and then from like, same thing with Bermuda. They're like, oh, well, like, do they like walk around in like grass skirts? I'm like,
what?
I was like, Bermuda is one of the top 2 most expensive countries in the world to visit. It's the dollar is 1-to-1 with the US dollar, which, you know, like, I don't know where you guys are getting this stuff from. Like it's, but you have to deal with stuff like that all the time. And then if you say you're from an island, then all of a sudden it's, oh, yeah, man, I love Bob Marley. One, Bermuda is not even in the Caribbean. It's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But then if you are from a Caribbean island, it's still the same thing. And it's like, okay, you guys got to understand, every island doesn't speak patois. And we all have, you know, if you're from like some of the other islands, you speak Creole or different variations of Creole. There's so many different variations of pidgin English that are spoken in. Like, educate yourselves. Just educate yourselves. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard.
It's not that hard for us, but again, I think a lot of it is the lack of effort. You know, a lot of people don't make the effort, and they kind of
around, like, because you know, when you are in a lot of these kids, so like in my areas that I grew up in, the majority, you had some schools that were like 90% white. And like there was like 1 or 2 black kids, a couple Asian kids, and a couple like Hispanic kids, right? So if they have, that's all they see is white people all the time, they just assume everybody's like white people. It's like, no, it's not it. Like I remember when I was like, oh yeah, I gotta go to the barber, they were like, oh, you go to like Supercuts. I was like, no, Supercuts can't cut my hair. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, because they don't know how to handle my texture of hair. What do you mean your texture of hair is different? I was like, look at my hair and look at your hair. What do you mean? What do you mean? You can't
what
tell
do
the
you mean?
Like they think a lot of times they think that it's just it's 1-to-1. They don't realize that we can't use the same shampoos that they use because it will dry our hair out.
Right.
You know, like we have to use different types of lotion and sunscreen when we go out because our skin is different. Like I can't use the same aftershave that a white guy does because my hair grows a different way and my body produces more oil. So like it's all of these things that we know, of course, because we grew up with it. And plus, more often than not, when you are a minority, you are growing up with other minorities. So you get exposed to more cultures, especially when you're a person, like when you're like a first generation American, or you know, immigrated here as a child. So you tend to be around other immigrants and people of color. So you pick up on this stuff very early. But when you don't have it, you know, you don't have it.
No, and that's true. And the reason we're bringing this up, and I know people are not going to be used to us kind of delving into it like this when we post this on whatever streaming site, but it's important because even before we jumped on air, you and I talked about Liam Neeson's dumb commentary.
Stupid. This is easily one of the most egregiously bad PR things I've ever seen.
So the star of the Taken franchise and apparently everyone's middle-aged action star, this isn't the first time he's stepped in it, and I think he doesn't realize how much he stepped into it because people are saying, well, he's not American, so he doesn't get the nuance of the things he says, and I'm like, bullshit. He was married to an American woman for a while, I believe.
And I believe he's lived in America for a very long time as well.
Yes. So and the long and short of this is that he essentially made a comment about he was looking for a black person to beat up because one of his friends was raped, from what you told me earlier today. And in his response was she didn't really have any identifying characteristics of the assailant, and basically just said it's a black guy. So Liam, I guess he was channeling his Taken character, decided to go out and find them and try to bring them to his own personal justice.
And what he's just said was, I was roaming the streets looking for a black bastard to kill.
Yes.
And he told this to a reporter.
Yes.
And he was like, then said, I don't know why I'm telling a reporter this. I don't know either, Liam. That's something you could have kept to yourself. Because, of course, the people that are going to be like, well, we forgive you are the people that it doesn't affect. And that's one of those things that I always say. If you're not affected by something, you're not going to be affected by it.
Right.
And with this is for us to forgive him. People of color, black people, we are the ones that need to forgive him. We are the ones that need to decide whether he meant what he said, not white people. Sorry, white people. I know a lot of times y'all feel entitled to be the ones to rule things, but when it comes to issues for people of color, that is us. We have to handle that stuff. We are the gatekeepers that say, sure, this is okay, this person's okay, what have you and whatnot. But like, this was just stupid. He could have kept this to himself because now people are going to look at him sideways. And like, I know he's going to try to, they're going to try to turn this into a redemption story, which is what they've been trying to do with some of the articles that have come out since then, where how I got over, like, no, bruh. Like, this isn't a how I got over situation, especially in the age that we're in now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's something you could have just kept to yourself. You want to talk about that to your friends? Awesome. You don't tell that to a journalist that's going to put this on the web where everybody's going to see it. That was stupid. And
then you know how you know it was stupid? Because he realized after the fact, why am I telling you this? Yeah, good question. Why are you telling them this? So you kind of summed it up for yourself. And this isn't the first time. This is not the first time he's stepped in the shit, because I want to say maybe a year ago, back when equality for women's pay in movies was a topic for discussion, he went on record saying he's an advocate. He wants women, to have all the rights of the world, et cetera, in terms of movies and entertainment. And then when the reporter follows up with, so should women get equal pay as you for roles? And he's absolutely not. No, right. Let's not get too careful. He's literally, look it up. It was I remember the Dan Le Batard show in Miami played it religiously. Yeah. And he goes, no, like literally saying no, that women should not get equal pay.
Right. Like there are women that have been acting far longer than he has, that have more awards than he do.
Yes.
That still make less. That have been in movies that have garnered more money than he has, that still get paid a fraction of what he does.
Yes. But he's an advocate though, right?
Yeah, he's an advocate.
Just putting out there. And you and I and Darnell talk about, and Kat talks about these things all the time in our little group chat about people who masquerade as allies.
Right.
But when shit hits the fan, or when you got to speak with your wallet, that's when it's a hush falls over the crowd.
Right.
So this is a prime example of someone who has privilege on 2 counts, has privilege, and has opened their mouth twice and realized, yeah, this might not have been the smartest thing to say.
Yeah.
I'll give you a pass maybe one time if you put your foot in your mouth, because I've done it numerous times in my life. But if you're in that high of priority or that high of a stratosphere in entertainment, or your chosen field of work, Herman Edwards used to say this all the time, the former New York Jets and Kansas City Chiefs head coach, now coach at Arizona State. Think before you hit send.
Right.
When dealing with social media. In dealing with interviews, man, you need to take that half second.
Right.
Take that half second and say, not going to say that. Not going to say that. Like our boy R. Kelly, right, D? When we did that interview right after the acquittal.
Right after he got acquitted. And
right
they said,
after the acquittal.
So
do you like young girls? Well, what do you mean by young girls?
It's like, sir, we already know you're nasty. Like, you're just giving us more proof of it. And like, it's one time is a mistake. 2 times is a pattern.
That's a habit. Exactly.
Like this is part of you. When you do this multiple times, this is a pattern that you have going on. And like it when it comes to stuff like this, it's just like you have and this is the thing. He's got PR training.
Yes.
That's the thing. When you are a star of that large, you have PR training. Especially somebody that has to go on press runs for movies all the time. Like,
agreed.
How are you still doing this?
I just can't. And that's the problem. And that's the problem, is because you have access to all these types of ways to be able to diffuse a situation before it gets too out of control, and you let your motor mouth run, and thusly you're in a whole lot of deep shit. So thank you, Liam Neeson, for again being in the news for something other than your career. Because on one hand, Dio, I understand the need to want to protect your friend, to get retribution, eye for eye, whatever the scriptures say. If my friend got raped, I would feel the same way. I'd want to go and get justice a la Batman, be whatever crime-fighting vigilante superhero of the world. But when you open your mouth and you say, I was looking for a black bastard, really?
Like, that's
kill. Not even to beat up, to kill. Oh, God. Can't deal with y'all sometimes. See, this is why humanity needs a Snickers break. All of y'all. Eat a Snickers. Don't talk. Shut up.
It's like, bro, you just it just makes no sense.
What brings up another question. I'll let you finish, but I just want to put this on the ether for us to talk about. We mentioned having our own apologetic cutoff point.
Right.
We're the gatekeepers as people of color. If someone makes kind of an overstep, we can say it's okay or not okay because it happened to us or people like us. Where, I guess, in your estimation, in your history of, you've worked in law, are there any people who are so dumbfounding where they're just cinder block brained that they don't realize what they're saying and doing is wrong?
Rich white people.
That's it.
That is the group where it happens most often.
Okay.
And when I say rich white people, I don't mean people that worked their way up from the bottom. I mean, people that have had wealth.
Yes.
Generational wealth, not rich wealth.
Generational wealth.
When you have people that run companies, those in the depositions, those are the people that fuck up the most because they've never had. So you know how they had the whole affluenza thing with the guy that killed people? There is credence to that, but they still should be held accountable for it. Because when you have this thing where you have had unlimited resources and have never been checked for anything in your life, you do whatever.
Day's gonna come.
It's like, but like when you have people of color that are rich, they've had to deal with the racism portion of it though. Like doesn't matter how rich you are or how wealthy you are, you still get hit with that racism. It happened to Oprah, a billionaire. Went into a store. I forgot which store it was, but she was in Europe. She goes into the store and like they asked her to leave because they didn't think she could afford it.
Oprah.
And it's like Oprah could have bought she could have bought your store and the brands. And when I say brands, I mean the companies. She could have bought the companies that were selling the bags in your store. But that's the thing. When you have people, it's when you have like rich white people that have been encapsulated in these things. These are the ones that I see all the time. It's always, and I shouldn't say rich white people, rich white men are the ones where it happens the most. Because when you look at a lot of these, when it comes to like sexual harassment lawsuits or, calling people derogatory terms, oh, well, I didn't know that was a thing. And a lot of times they don't because they've never been around people of color. Outside of the people of color being the people that work in their houses, essentially. So, like it's one of those things. Though that's the group that I see the most. Now, if I just want to give a blanket term, it's dudes. Men are stupid, and doesn't matter what color you are, we do dumb, stupid, very, very, very stupid things.
You're bringing this up, and I'm thinking about, and I'm not going to mention the organization because I'm a professional, but I did work with an organization years ago who, when we were discussing how to work with fundraising and trying to raise funds, they did not think, and it was a raffle we were trying to do.
Right.
It was a higher end raffle.
Right.
So the tickets would have been, you get one for $25, you get three for $50.
Right.
And the pot would have been, I think, $5,000 or something like that, at least, the winning pot. I tried to bring it up to a board of directors where we should incorporate, or at least allow the opportunity to those who participate in our programs to be part of the raffle as a way of kind of them giving back to the program. They may not win because it's a raffle, but they want to feel a part of the organization in that way.
Right.
D, when I tell you, and I've told the story a few times to people, when I tell you that one person said the exact words of, "Oh, our clients wouldn't want to do that. They can't afford that. Why do you think they subscribe to our services?"
Right.
D, you know me. I had to be restrained internally from saying anything. And it goes back to what we were talking about, generational. And this person isn't wealthy, I'd say, but I'd say they are narrow and short-sighted.
Right.
For them to say, "Oh, our clientele wouldn't want to participate because they can't afford it." And I stood up and I said, "I'm sorry. Do you know the reason why they come to for our services? It's not because they're poor. It's because we're the most affordable in the neighborhood."
Right.
It's not about poverty with these people. It was because we were the most affordable.
Right.
Why do you think the families, and I did this working for ACS back home, I would do these home visits and walk into the projects, but they would have the 70-inch screen TV. Yeah. They would have money for other things.
Right. And
because they're saving money on rent.
Right. And like people, that's what the thing that people don't get is like, so one, when it comes to African Americans specifically, we spend more than any other race when it comes to spending money and saving, we have the highest spending power because we do it so often, more than any other race in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like when you look at, especially like when you look at what opulence and things of that nature that you see in the media, who does it end up being? It's us. Like like when you look at people, we will go and wait in line and buy $300 sneakers. Like it's part of the culture. And like when you see that, like it's like, so they don't see that as being able to afford that. They often see that as, oh, you're spending money on dumb things. That's what you want, though. You want people that spend money. Market to them.
Yes.
Like it's one of those things. And we see it in pro. So this is another thing too. In pro wrestling, in all sports, really, where black and brown markets tend to get overlooked. Because they think, okay, they're impoverished, even though we spend more money, or like, and you have like these wealth of talents that are just being overlooked because either historically they've never been accepted into said sport or community, or they just have always been overlooked as, oh, they can't afford to be part of this, right? And like, so soccer's the best example, right? So Hope Solo, who I can't stand her. She is a trash human being. But she said something that was very true. And people jumped on her about it. Like there's a lot to jump on her about, but this wasn't it. And basically it boiled down to, she was like, yeah, when you look at other countries and why they do better than us in soccer is because everybody can play. Everyone can play. But in America, it has become a rich white sport because gear is expensive.
Yes.
Travel is expensive.
Yes.
All of these things that only the upper crust can afford. That's why it has become that. You know, like you go to Brazil, you like, so the big countries like the Brazils, a lot of the African countries. What is the one game that everybody can afford to play? It's football or soccer. Because it's a ball that you kick. Everybody can play that. And a lot of times these kids that's the only avenue that many of them have to get out of poverty. You know? And like in America, there's no, you know, our games and you know, when it comes to people of color, it's football, basketball. Those are the two avenues out. Maybe baseball every now and then.
If you can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, maybe baseball for a person of color.
Right. But otherwise, football and basketball.
Yes.
But like when she said that, it was like, it's true. Like going to buy a decent pair of cleats is going to cost you over $100. You know, having to buy, then you have to go and buy the jerseys from the school. It's also going to cost you close to $100 per set. Then you have to buy their training stuff. Then you have to pay, you know, whatever it is when you have to go from like club dues and stuff like that. And that prices out a lot of kids who have the athletic potential to do all of this stuff. Gymnastics is another place where we see this. I grew up with kids that could do entire floor routines better than what you see in the Olympics that had no training whatsoever and would hit the stuff perfect. But they couldn't do, you know, going to a gym where they actually do gymnastics, that's expensive as hell to get a membership there. People can't afford that. That's why for the longest time, when you saw a lot of the people that are on these teams, they come from rich white families. And when you saw people of color, they tended to be adopted kids of color.
Yes.
So, you know, like it's I know folks will get mad about it, but sorry. It is what it is.
It is what it is. And
you know?
Well, I am the guy who will always go to bat saying all of us as humans have one specific talent that's unique to us, like a way we do it. I may be one of 4 billion podcasters on the planet, but there's a way I do it that's different than most. And I'm okay with that.
Right.
Now, if I was in an athletic endeavor, for instance, I did Little League for a little while. I thought I was pretty good at it. Did I ever think I was going to be a baseball player? No. But could I have at least gotten a shot if I would have had more financial backing from my parents to go to other private leagues, to be able to train, to be able to get gear? Probably. Right. But therein lies the first problem of when I take it back to that thing about the fundraising. When you limit who you market your sport or events to, you are cutting out a vast majority of people that may be an untapped resource.
Right.
For instance, soccer or football. I am the least coordinated dude to play soccer. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I will damn sure will watch a game if I resonate with someone who's like me that plays this sport. It goes back to wrestling too. When we talk about representation or wrestling schools, where I want to hear more stories of those wrestlers who are of color that say, yeah, all those things we hear about sleeping in your car and stuff. Yeah, we did it too, but nobody talks about it.
Right.
I had to sell my last, like my plasma just to go to wrestling school.
Right.
I would love to hear that story from a person of color, not discrediting hearing it from our more lighter skinned hues brother and sisters out there, but you get tired of hearing the same thing. And I don't know if you remember this, Dio. Remember when TJP was actually relevant and decent and he won the Cruiserweight Classic and people were bitching and moaning about his homelessness story?
Right.
Oh, I don't want to hear it. Why is he getting pushed? He's only getting pushed because he was homeless. How about we just hear more stories like that as humans?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's been uncovered that TJP might not be the most wholesome human on the planet, but it doesn't preclude him from having to struggle to achieve his dream.
Right.
So don't give me that whole, well, they're poor, so they wouldn't want to participate in this. How the hell do you know?
Right.
Have you literally I can tell you right now, one of my biggest life-changing moments was when I went to the Philippines for a wedding and like you said, the opulence of some of the people who were on this bus going from the wedding to the reception and going through these impoverished villages. And I saw kids playing basketball with no shoes on and those cutoff shorts that we grew up on when we were like 12.
Right.
And they were in dirt roads on milk crates playing basketball. And they were having the gosh darn time of their life.
Yep.
And I've taken that with me since that day back in 2016, 2015. I wish we all could be a little bit more appreciative of the fact that, look, man, I'm not trying to be Sally Struthers here and we are the children, but think about the opulence that you have that you may not realize is coming out your mouth.
Right.
The privilege. We talked about that dude with the affluenza. I brought it up the other day to Melissa. I talked about that guy. And in his mind, he really thought, really? I'm not allowed to do that?
Right.
Because no one's called him on it.
Yep.
And I don't know who else to blame other than the culture they were brought up in.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're not exposed to. My high school only had one white person in it.
Right.
One. I didn't get to really know white people until I went to college.
Yeah. No, that's how, like with me, I was born in Alabama. Mm-hmm. My parents split up for a while and my mom moved us to Bermuda.
Yes.
Black people are the majority in Bermuda. So when I came back over here for kindergarten, it was a culture shock for me because I went from seeing faces like myself all the time to only seeing a handful of us. And like we were in a pretty relatively diverse area at the time, but like people never really know until they've experienced it, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it's just one of those shitty things. And like taking it back to like pro wrestling. So one of the issues that we've had for the longest time when it comes to representation is the fact that we only got to see one type of character, right? It was three types of characters that you had. You had the magical African or Caribbean person, the savage Caribbean or, African person. Yeah. And then you had a thug.
True.
That was it. That is all we had. We had three types of people that you could be. We didn't have any hero type characters. Even Coco Beware was looked at like a thug. You know
what? How is Coco Beware a thug?
But he was black and was dressed
colorful
in hip hop color. So that's a gangster. Like, so like it was, then you had Bad News Brown. You had like
who I loved. I love Bad News Brown.
The Ghetto Blaster was the shit. But like you had all of these people, and it was just like we only had one type of thing. But then you look at the white guys, and you had all these things. Of course, it could be worse. We could be Samoans and only be savages. But like in pro wrestling, you look at Caucasian wrestlers, and they have a plethora they have a wealth of backgrounds and character types to choose from. But we would only have one or two on a show.
Well, remember the gang wars back in WWF?
Yep.
You had the Puerto Ricans versus the blacks versus the white bikers.
Right.
That's what we had, in the 90s. And you want to go even farther back. People talk with reverence about Pedro Morales, and they talk, I remember Jose Lothario was made to be a big deal because he was HBK's first trainer, and the Colones, Carlito and their whole family.
Right. They still work here, but sorry.
Like we talked about on the last podcast, Champs, they still work here, but that's all we had. Right. I and this is part of the problem with professional wrestling, and I really hope this changes, and maybe it's just strictly WWE. And what I worry for All Elite Wrestling eventually is that every person of color who's a wrestler or a talent will fit into a caricature and not be themselves, allowed to be themselves. Right. Like we said earlier at the beginning of this broadcast about the New Day, they were allowed to be their dorky ass selves from on level 5,000, right, and not a militant, angry Nation of Domination group, which from what we remember was probably the route they were going until all the news reports of racial inequality in America. Newsflash, been going around longer than the New Day talked about it. So it's been around since before Dio and I were born, before our ancestors were born. But you saw how quick they changed that? And then they made them the Hoagie Positivity Group. And they said, okay, we're going to take this positivity crap and we're going to make a mountain of money for ourselves and for y'all off of this power of positivity. Then it stopped being about that. Then they started being just nerdy, dorky corporate shills, which it was like winking for the fourth wall.
Right.
We know what we're doing, but we're going to make a lot of money and be nerds doing it and then help our other nerd peeps out.
Right. Because and for me, like with the New Day, like it opened avenues to other things. Like Xavier Woods' Up, Up, Down, Down is one of the most incredible things that I have ever seen in my life.
I love it. And we're both gamers. We love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that is just one of the best things because he was us. Like I saw myself, I grew up in the same area as him. So I understand exactly why he turned out the way that he does. So like, it was just great. It was like when you see stuff like that. And so that's the other thing too, with representation, it opens doors for other things.
Yes.
And like Up, Up, Down, Down is like a multicultural thing. It's not just for Black people. It's not just for people of color. It's for everybody. Everybody loves that show. You wouldn't have had that had they not been given a chance.
True.
So it's like, if you don't give people a chance to shine, if you keep on giving it to the same people that don't really have passions for anything, like you're closing off so much, like so many new characters, but also so much money that you're like, now you are taking the WWE to gaming festivals and gaming conventions and stuff like that. That's bringing more people in. People that haven't watched WWE since it was WWF are going to go, you know what? I like this Xavier guy or this Austin Creek. I want to go watch him. I want to see what this is about. And like, they don't think about that stuff.
And it also helps that, let's be honest here, he's probably one of the most intelligent people in the whole organization.
Absolutely. No question about that.
Top to bottom. So that also helps to overcome the stereotype that, what do you mean Black and Spanish people can't be intellectual or intelligent? What do you mean that they can't reach out to different audiences and like this, that, and the third? Really? We're still doing this, but it goes back to, again, lack of exposure.
Right.
I'm a whole bunch of different cultures. Thank you to 23andMe for showing me that. I am a Spaniard. I am also Italian. I am also Japanese. So I can say I like to expose myself to as many cultures as humanly possible.
Right.
And as many people as humanly possible. Do I want that to limit anyone in the world? No, of course not. I say get out there, meet as many people as possible, break bread with people. I think that is the easiest way for us to kind of bridge those divides if we're stuffing our face with good food. Like, let's just be honest here.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's when the best conversations happen.
Of course. And I feel like like that Table for Three show on the network, I honestly think if there was just like an hour of just people talking at dinner about random shit, we'd be a lot better off in terms of just how we interact with one another. But keeping it back to wrestling, just this episode started because I wanted to talk about why watching NXT is better than watching any other wrestling going on the network.
Right.
I feel like NXT needs to be, because of the ethnic diversity, the character diversity, it needs to be on network television, not on the WWE network.
Right.
Even if I can't do worse than Impact.
Yeah.
You know,
we can't even watch Impact.
Right. Because I don't have the Pursuit channel. So
nobody has a Pursuit channel. And there's no like even like a paid subscription service where you can go. Nope. So like now you're basically forcing us to pirate your stuff.
Yes. And you don't want us to do that, but we're going to do it anyway, because back when you and I were our kids, Dio, didn't we all have the hot box?
All had the hot box.
You know,
we all either had the hot box or we had the hookup. Like, dude would come around like every 2-3 months and be like, yo, you give me $20, I'll hook up the cable outside.
I'll zap your box. Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
All the time.
And then you'd have all the pay-per-views, you'd have all the porn channels, you'd have all Skinamax and HBO that you didn't want to pay for, but you got it for free. Yep. So that's what we mean. You know, back then we had those kinds of, I want to say, annals to be able to kind of see those things. Pursuit channel, don't know where you are, don't have you.
Right.
I don't subscribe to Twitch. I have a Twitch account, never used it before. Right. So can't watch your stuff there. NXT, I guarantee you, if they put it on an actual network,
they would do gangbusters.
Oh, please show me that. I would rather see, and as much as he can't talk on the mic for shit, give me Ricochet wrestling Adam Cole or Johnny Gargano, types every week, and I'll watch that. Give me Aleister Black kicking people in the face like it's a John Woo movie. Give me that.
Yep.
Give me. I can't stand Adam Cole fans. I think I said this last night. But that goes back to our whole Bullet Club, porqueria fandom, but he's a damn good wrestler.
Yeah.
I feel
really
like
short arms.
Yeah. And for a real slim guy whose hair weighs more than he does.
Oh, yeah. He's really good at what he does, though.
He's good at what he does. Keith Lee, good at what he does. Yeah. So if you haven't watched NXT, I guess this is the long way for us to say, if you haven't watched NXT, do yourself a favor. Turn off the sports entertainment aspect. If you're a wrestling fan, give NXT a shot. Give NXT UK a shot, because I feel as if there are people even now I've never heard of that I'm thinking, okay, I could watch you. Like Zach Gibson. I saw him once at Progress.
Right.
The amount of heat this dude was getting, Dio. He didn't even say a word. It was level of Roman that day after he supposedly retired Undertaker that one day. He was like, this is my yard now. And he stood there for 20 minutes, didn't say a word.
And just got booed into oblivion.
That was Zach Gibson. Showed up, didn't say a word. Wound him getting booed for the first 5 minutes of the show. Didn't say a word. Top level heel. Yeah. I'd watch that guy because he's annoying. Rhea Ripley, we've talked about her. I am slowly getting on the Rhea Ripley bandwagon only because she can go in the mosh pit and whoop everybody's ass.
Yeah. So I'm coming to realize. So you have to see them prove themselves on things.
Yes.
With me, I get hooked off of potential. So when I see the potential, I will get on the bandwagon early. Because like if I see that glimmer of star power, I will jump onto the bandwagon. Like, all right. And I think that part of that comes from me being a combat sports fan as well. So like with some of the greats that we've seen, Ronda Rousey, for instance, like saw her amateur matches and was like, something incredible is going to happen here, because that was wild. John Jones, one of the other greats, in my opinion, the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. Y'all can fight me on that. But like, it's when I see that glimmer, when it's like you have that star moment, if you will, and it's like, okay, that's when I jump on. So yeah, just I noticed that. I noticed that the other day. So I was like, oh yeah.
And that, you know what? I agree with you on that, because to be quite fair, because I know how WWE works, or at least I'd like to think I know how WWE works. We've talked about it on this show and on other shows. I don't have high hopes in the past,
right,
for when they brought in the flavor of the month.
Right.
So when I saw Patrick Clark for the first time, again, I saw sports entertainer. And I think that's the difference for me. I'm not into sports entertainer first, wrestler second. I'd rather you be a wrestler first, and then you turn into a sports entertainer.
Right.
Because you're combining everything that they want, but at the same token, you speak to what I vibe with.
Right. So, and so this is my thing too. When I think sports entertainer and a wrestler, I don't think there are actually very many wrestlers in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like even on the indies, I don't think there are that many wrestlers. Like, it is not pro wrestling as it was when it was birthed. It's not even the pro wrestling that we had in like the 70s and the 80s.
Yes.
It has been sports entertainment ever since, I would say, since like the mid 80s. It's been sports entertainment across all boards. WCW, sports entertainment. WWE, ECW, all of that was sports entertainment. Did they have very technical matches and stuff? Yes, but this was all sports entertainment. That's when you had the, ECW with Kimono Wanalea dancing atop
the ECW arena.
Like, you have that. You had New Jack. New Jack wasn't wrestling.
Nope.
New Jack was hurting people. Like, you had in WCW, the NWO, that wasn't wrestling. No. That was sports entertainment. So, like, because when I look at it, when folks like, oh, WWE sports, I was like, no, we've been watching sports entertainment since I was born, bro. Y'all gotta, like, that terminology's got to go out the window.
You know what? Thank you for that. I really appreciate you saying that, because it's true. We have been watching sports entertainment. We haven't been watching wrestling. This is why people
pro wrestling is catch can.
Yes,
it's grappling. So you want to watch pro wrestling? If you want to watch professional wrestling, go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament. That's professional wrestling. Go watch amateur wrestling at your local college or high school. If you want to see actual wrestling, go watch that stuff. What we watch when we watch these television shows, this is sports entertainment. Even if they are doing technical wrestling, all of this is not catch as catch can. There are very few people that could even do that if they wanted to. You have the Josh Barnett's, Shayna Baszler's, Daniel Bryan's, maybe Zack Sabre Jr.'s. There's a handful of people, maybe even John Gresham, that could actually do this stuff. But if you think pro wrestling is just hard style or strong style stuff, no, that's sports entertainment too.
Okay. No,
just because they're fighting, just because they're hitting each other really hard, it's still sports entertainment.
So then maybe we should start a different label. We should start using different labels to describe it. Just call it professional wrestling. Can we call it that at least, instead of just saying sports entertainment?
Yeah, like that's what it's been for a long time. Like,
so then maybe it starts with us. The shift of the way we phrase it. Now I could tell you the type of professional wrestler I enjoy watching. I do enjoy watching some of old Shinsuke's stuff. Not this one, because he's safe now and he's not getting the crap kicked out of him. Yeah, it's not Shibata. I love Shibata, but do I want him losing his brain? No.
Right. Yeah. So like that's what I always think about too. Like when folks are like, "Oh man, I want strong style," but then they're like, "Damn, that's fucked up. What happened to Shibata? That shouldn't happen to people." Bitch, what? Bitch, what? How? How can you want people to headbutt each other and bust each other open hard way, and then not want them to get CTE or traumatic brain injury? You don't want them to end up like Takayama.
No.
You don't want them. What is his name? The guy that had the internal decapitation.
What?
Was it Misawa?
Internal decapitation?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
So basically what happens is when he landed on his neck and his spinal cord was severed.
Oh,
There's no coming back from that. What was his name? They're gonna take away my Japanese wrestling card after this.
Well, I wouldn't say anything about that. That's fine. Oh man, I just realized that shit. Damn, I cannot envision myself catching a internal decapitation.
Yeah, it was Misawa. Yeah,
it was. Misawa. Oh, it was Misawa. Okay.
Yeah, so he landed on his head, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as they called it, it's he officially died of a cardiac arrest, but that's because it was cervical spinal injury that was it. There's no coming back from that. Like the way that he landed, and here's the thing about the spine, you fuck that up, that's it. Nothing. You can't do anything about it. Somebody breaks your if they break your back Batman style, you are never getting fixed.
No.
It's never going. If you get hit and like your spinal cord gets severed, that's it. That's it. Lights out. Like movies and TV have taught people that they can come back from a lot of this shit. Nah, it's not possible. It's not. The spine and the brain are the two things that you cannot regrow.
Oh my God. I just thought remember how in ECW we talked about the Kimono Wanalea thing? Remember how they used to say about Sabu breaking his neck?
Yeah.
When Benoit
he didn't break because that's the thing. Like a lot of folks think like, oh, I broke my neck, or a person broke their neck. They think, no, it's a fracture.
Yes,
the fracture. Like one of his spinal, one of the rungs broke, or rather not broke, but rather it's, kind of cracked. But yeah, like it's one of those things. It's one of those things.
So I want to take also a couple. I know we're running really long here on Podcast Champs, and it's kind of all over the place, but there's a reason for this. Is because I wanted to bring light to something, and I know some people who listen are going to say, "Well, stop! Don't talk about this." Look, man, I've been in a really shitty mental space the last week, going through an identity crisis of sorts, not knowing if I'm any good at doing this broadcasting thing. Knowing what I want to do with my life is not where I'm at right now. And kind of also, I haven't been able to reach my parents. My mom has disconnected her phone, and my father, because of his dementia issues, I can't really talk to him.
Right.
So kind of stranded on an island internally. Right. So the reason I wanted to do this today was because I wanted to bring a little bit of light and levity to the fact that for me, this is therapy.
Yeah.
When I had my breakdown back in April, Dio, I can say this was the first person from social media world to be like, bro, you need anything? Like, I can say this as a friend and as a co-host. He was probably the first or second person that literally came to my aid when I needed it. So
other people in the group chat.
Yeah, that too. And just being able to do this broadcasting bit, for those who don't know me, let's just do the quick aside. Trained broadcaster, sports radio was my thing where I got trained on. I've done human service radio back in New York and here in Dallas briefly. So I have the chops for this. But the jobs weren't being lined up unless it was, well, can you do it for free?
Right. No.
And this goes back to what you and I talk about, D. If you have an art or a gift, people stay wanting you to do it for free, and then they'll throw it in your face saying, well, you haven't paid your dues enough. No. Yeah. It's not about paying your dues. It's knowing your worth. And in the world we live in now, where all I got to do is record this little podcast, and I guarantee you, someone will give us $10, $20 just for doing this show, and that's $10 more than what me and Dio would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, like the middleman is gone now.
Yes,
right. Like it's in so many different avenues. You don't have to be so like. For instance, photography. That's my thing.
Yes.
That's my passion. You can go on YouTube and learn how to take photographs. You can learn the basics. You can learn all of these things. With models, you don't even have to train to be a model. You can literally just take some pictures and put them on Instagram, gain a following, and become a model. Anybody can make a podcast these days. Basically.
Man, listen,
Yeah,
don't we know?
Anybody can make a podcast. We're here making a podcast. But like, it's, the whole thing of yesteryear where you had to get you had these gatekeepers that kept you from all that. A lot of that shit's gone. Like some of the most famous photographers in the world never went to school, especially the new age ones. So Ravi B on Twitter, she took some dope shots of Beyonce at a concert, and she became Beyonce's personal photographer. Like the middleman's gone. Like you could just go 1-to-1 with stuff now. So like a lot of that before, where it's like it's good and it's bad, because like people can gain, especially in this influencer culture. So if you have a following, you're going to get more of, people are going to jump on to you just because you have such and such follower count, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at what you do, because like some of the best like journalists, quote unquote, like Ariel Helwani in mixed martial arts, I can't stand it. But like they called him the best journalist. He has not done any journalism for close to a decade, maybe. But there are other journalists that are actually out there on the field, really gaining the scoops, that have uncovered, direct links between dictators in Chechnya that are not ethnically cleansing, but committing genocide on the LGBTQ community in the country. Like, those are the real journalists. Those are that. But this person's got a certain following, so they are the best journalists. So it's like, as much as like, and I see it all the time where like I see people post trash pictures, trash photography, and like gain a following because it's a mood. It's a it's a vibe.
It's a mood. Hashtag mood.
Right. And it's like, this isn't good. And like all of my friends that know photography, like, and some of the models are looking at me like, this is not good, but got a following. And, it's something that people like. That's all that matters. It's something that people like. So like, I had to let go of I know I can technically do this better, and just accept, well, you know what? I just got to find my niche. Find my niche and go from there.
Look, dude, I'm confident enough to be able to say this out loud. We've heard some pretty crappy podcasts out there.
Yeah.
They are in the wrestling world, in sports world, crappy. And I'm not talking about that they have good production, bells and whistles. They pay someone on Fiverr to probably do their production. I'm talking about content.
Right.
I'm talking about the ability to be behind this microphone and actually have a coherent conversation with salient points that make sense.
Yep.
That don't just attribute to the bro culture or cis culture. We're not like that. We are not your Wrestle Bros wrestling podcast. We will cover wrestling. We will cover topics about people of color, human decency. We will talk about trash people and put them to shame as if we're TMZ. We don't care about that. We will shoot from the hip and speak from our hearts because we give no Fs.
Yep.
And that's okay. I mean, would it be better if me and Dio did it flexing our biceps and getting thirst traps out there? Yeah. Who knows? Me and Dio be like, bang, look, thirst traps for y'all. Yeah, give it to our Patreon. You know what I mean? But here we are on a Monday doing a podcast that's probably about an hour and a half long now because we felt the need to have a conversation about mental health that turned into NXT, that turned into soccer, that turned into representation, that turned into going back to NXT, that turned into now more mental health and chasing your dreams and all that good stuff. And now we're taking it to task about people who have thirst traps. So we are all things to all podcasters out there. Mm-hmm. So I think honestly, D, this is one of those shows where I don't give a fuck about downloads. I don't give a fuck about whether or not this was professionally done. We had context, we had content, and to be quite honest with you, I'd rather be doing this show with you than doing some fluff fucking Super Bowl show with Bro Joe X on any other network.
Yeah, and Bro, you got to deaf to the bros. Deaf to the bros.
Not Matt Riddle because he's cool, but
no, Riddle's the shit. Riddle is awesome.
Riddle's invited to the cookout as long as he wants to keep coming. It's fun.
Yeah, because he's going to bring the bomb ass weed, and I know he got the bomb weed because he literally had to leave MMA because he couldn't stop smoking weed. Fucking amazing.
It was like, well, and that's another thing that we talk about athletes medicating through natural means versus popping pills.
Yeah,
I had this conversation I think with Melissa the other day about wrestlers who using weed to self-medicate as opposed to taking 4,000 painkillers that leads to like various heart ailments or body ailments because disease, runs rampant in the professional wrestling world.
He's like, you don't want to end up like Kurt Angle.
No, you don't. You don't want to be a pill addict.
Right. Like you don't want to, like two things happen in pro wrestling if you don't take care of yourself. You either die
early
or you're crippled.
Yes.
There is no way around it. Name one person in pro wrestling that isn't a fucking walking shamble. Like there is not a single older person that isn't walking around just destroyed. Yes, they might be able to walk around at meet and greets and all that stuff, but when they go home, that Tiger Bomb's coming out quick. Whatever other stuff that they have to have. Like it's, looking at like, and especially like over in Japan where you have a lot of these dudes that were mixed martial artists as well, like Sakuraba. Sakuraba is one of my favorite mixed martial artists and wrestlers of all time, but the man is being held together by cigarettes and duct tape. Like it's like it is
cigarettes and duct tape.
Dude, he smokes an insane amount of cigarettes. He drinks an insane amount of alcohol. Like I think his body's just pickled at this point, is what it is. Like in MMA, he got his ear ripped off in a match, and like they just taped the shit back on basically. Like it's but yeah, like it's you only end up a walking shamble of bones or dead. There's no way around it. I would much rather my favorite professional or just wrestlers, period, let them smoke weed.
Yeah.
Like, and if they're not smoking weed, let them take CBD oil. The cannabinoids are going to show up in their system just like, some folks just look at cannabinoids and that's it, but don't actually test for THC. It's like, okay, it's not the same. THC is the psychoactive element that gives you the high. CBD actually has so many amazing things that it actually helps with.
What are some of the things that CBD oil does help with for those who don't know?
So inflammation, it can be used to treat like a lot of cancer patients love CBD oil, like because it's not like so far it's not like fully documented, and some of the reason why it's not fully documented is it hasn't been around for that long. But then also like Big Pharma doesn't want that because CBD oil is cheap, and like it can, hypertension, so many things. It's one of those like when people come up with like cure-alls, it's one of those things that basically does that. Like I know a lot of people that work out use CBD oil for recovery.
Okay. And
like I know for me, when I take CBD oil when I'm in the gym, it absolutely helps with my recovery. So yeah, it's awesome.
I used to take CBD pills maybe a couple years ago, but I misread the label, and instead of taking one pill, I took two.
Yeah.
And it did not sit well on my stomach, and I didn't realize it because the first day I was fine, second day I was fine, but the fourth day I took it when my inflammation was acting up, and I took two, my body said, nah, bro, we got to ration you out a little bit more. So I now understand the folly I made, and I will never do that again. I promise. But it goes back again, what we're saying. I'm totally into trying to find more holistic healing in general, because I feel like even on my worst high anxiety days, I don't want to reach for the pill bottle.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to reach. I can tell you right now, when I went through my suicidal episode back in April, I was prescribed lithium.
Lithium fucking sucks, bro.
I honestly think it was the placebo effect that got me back to a baseline level, not the pill itself.
Yeah.
Because there was a time when, again, not in realizing what it did to me physically, I was without realizing it, stacking Celexa with lithium.
Right, that's bad.
Oh, dude. I remember one day I took Celexa to fall asleep after taking lithium in the morning. I was a zombie the next day, dude. I woke up after about 12 hours. I couldn't pick my head up off the pillow.
Right.
So this goes to show that not all medication is good for you.
Right. And like, say, for instance, things like if you're a woman, right, you can't take lithium when you're pregnant. It will kill the baby.
Oh.
No damage. It will kill the baby. Like, it will just keep things from happening, period. It will not let it. Yeah, it's one of those things. So like because my cousin's girlfriend, she has to take it for her bipolar. And a lot of times she's like, yeah, if I ever have to have a family, I can't take it. I will just have to deal with these. I'll have to deal with my episodes another way because that's it, you know? So yeah, it's like there's so many like crazy side effects to a lot of these things. And it's just like, so you're willing to throw pills at these people, especially like with WWE now. So it's like, all right, so you want people to be clean and all this stuff, but then you don't give them an avenue to heal themselves without getting addicted.
Right.
Like you can't, there's no physical addiction to marijuana. There's no physical addiction. That is a mental thing. That is when people say they're potheads, that's a mental thing.
Yeah.
So which would you rather which would you rather it be? Okay, this person smokes a lot of weed or takes a lot of edibles or what have you, or somebody that is essentially taking meth.
Right.
Which is it? So one, you're guaranteed to get addicted to it. One, you're not. But one has the social stigma to it, and another was given by a doctor. It's like there shouldn't be, there should be no argument here.
Yeah, like there shouldn't be, but yet there is.
There is, right. And like it's when you've seen how so many people that were like athletes and things like that were like, yeah, I used to have to pop X amount of pills every single day to get through. But once I started taking like CBD or did edibles, all that stuff went out the window. Right. It's like, it's simple little stuff like that. But, the old guard is the old guard.
Yeah, I know. And that's what we're trying to overcome here. We're trying, because you and I have one foot in the new guard and one foot in the old guard. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. I could take a lot of like the discipline and pushing through the tough times that I learned from the old guard and using the new guard to say, you know what, that's motivating. The fact that they give no fucks.
Right.
They don't let society dictate what they should and shouldn't do. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm trying to do now. Like I'm literally trying to fight against years and years of programming from parents, from mentors, from schooling, when in reality, Dio, we just really want to do good content and be good people. Like that's not hard to do.
Yeah, that's basically what it boils down to. Like we aren't trying to reinvent the wheel.
Just, even though we shouldn't have to, but we are. So I think this is a good time as any to kind of log off here. And I'm going to talk to you off air about something I want to work on. It might be a private project that Dio and I embark on. So I think this is a good time to get off as any. This is Damien G. That's Dio. You've been listening to a really long and really crazy episode of Podcast Champs. And I'm liking it because if you listen to the last one we had with Kat, there's a lot of alcohol flowing. There's a lot of we don't care.
Yeah.
So have a good one, folks. And remember, try to not be an asshole to people, and I'm sure your world will be a lot better for it. So peace.